The wild robot has a very healthy relationship with the box office so far, but today we're going to discuss the various relationships between the movie's ensemble cast and rank them from healthy to toxic.
This Gosling is yours.
And as usual, we'll be starting with the healthiest dynamics and working our way down. These are the healthy relationships. And this is a bit of an unconventional pick, but we're giving the top spot to the relationship between all of the forest creatures. You could definitely argue that this is objectively incorrect, considering this forest population includes both predators and their prey. And further still, there are definitely some creatures who get along way better with each other than others. But that's where we have to clarify. This entry is for how the animals of the forest are connected as a whole. Like, all of them together. By that measure, I'd argue these guys have the best relationship of the ensemble cast. I mean, think about it. For as much as they might individually bicker with, steal, or even eat each other, when the situation demands it, the animals can all come together to work towards a common goal. We see this most clearly in the third act, where the whole group is forced into Roz's cave to survive an intense snowstorm. After being rallied together by Fink, they agree to a truce so they can get through the storm. And when it lets up, this new sense of camaraderie hasn't gone away. With the gang working together, they manage to extinguish the majority of a forest fire and, more importantly, help Paddler achieve his dream of knocking down that huge tree. Individually, they tend to argue a good bit, but when their community is in danger, these guys will come together, and that's what really matters at the end of the day. Heck, even that one moose's tendency to kick all the newcomers in the face is done in an effort to protect the community they've built. That says a lot about how much these guys care about each other deep down. But our silver medal of healthiness has to go to Longneck, Roz, and Brightbill's relationship. It might just be the fact that Longneck is the only goose who actually treated Brightbill with a modicum of respect, but in any case, their relationship is one of the most important in the movie, when Brightbill actually shows genuine progress with his flight lessons. Longneck acknowledges his determination and even compliments Roz for all her help. It goes without saying that Longneck gets a lot of points for all his help, but what really elevates him on our list is the fact that he's kind-hearted without sugarcoating anything. He warns Roz up front that Brightbill won't make it in migration if he can't fly non-stop from dawn to dusk. But even so, he still encourages them, agreeing to take him under his wing, literally, if he can manage his training in time. And that's not even getting into the fact that he took a point-blank laser to make sure Brightbill and the other geese could escape, which makes for a pretty easy top 2 choice. In our third spot, the bronze medal of healthiness has to go to the most important relationship in the entire movie, Roz and Brightbill. This dynamic duo met when Roz adopted Brightbill directly after slaughtering his entire family. And yeah, I know it sounds really bad when you say it like that, but then she gets better after Brightbill imprints on her. Roz tries to pawn him off on a different mother, and man, this whole not having emotions thing is really not the move for parenting, is it?
How would you rate my performance?
But I guess that's the point of their dynamic. There's no form of love quite so strong as that of a mother and a child, to the point where Roz, being tasked with raising Brightbill, pushes her to develop feelings she quite literally wasn't programmed to have. She's more than willing to lay down her life for Brightbill, and really, by extension, for the whole forest in general. This all culminates in her leaving the forest voluntarily so her friends won't be put in any danger by universal dynamics again. All because of the love she had for that little baby gooseling. But next up, let's mention Brightbill's other lesser-seen mentor. Brightbill and Thunderbolt have a less fleshed out dynamic than that of him and Longneck, but that's not to say it's much less palpable. I mean, as far as we know, Thunderbolt really is just some falcon. I don't know what, if anything, he's getting in return for helping teach Brightbill to fly, but whatever the case, he's more than happy to lend his fellow bird a hand and teach him that his short wings are something to be proud of, not ashamed of. We'd probably place them higher up if it weren't for the fact that we've quite literally said everything there is to be said about Thunderbolt in this movie. But a very cool character though. But let's go back to the main character and talk about the friendship between Roz and Fink. Roz and Fink might just be one of the most heartwarming in DreamWorks history. A stoic robot programmed to perform whatever tasks it's given, and a sarcastic, crafty fox who's always trying to get all the food he can get his paws on. This is a dynamic of Shrek and Donkey proportions here, and I don't say that lightly. While the pair might meet when Fink tries to steal Brightbill's eggs from Roz, that brief rivalry is flipped on its head when Roz helps Fink by pulling out the porcupine needles he got covered in. From then on, Fink slowly but surely repays the favor by helping Roz raise Brightbill, helping to gather all the food he'll need to survive. And getting some food for Brightbill too, I guess.
Just have a little fun for once.
Honestly, after that admittedly rocky start, Roz and Fink have a pretty steadily healthy friendship. Roz's companionship makes Fink a more kind-hearted, less selfish person, and on the other side of the coin, Fink's friendship helps Roz learn how to fully express her love for the people around her. Going back to the Shrek and Donkey comparison, unlike them, there isn't even a third act falling out between the two. At worst, there are times when Fink doubts whether Roz really cares about him when she plans to return home. Given how much they stuck together though, and how Fink stood up for her by rallying up all the other forest creatures under her goodwill, I'd say the answer is pretty obvious. This is a top-tier DreamWorks best friendship in the making. And it's only right to round out the main trio, so let's talk about Fink and Brightbill. I guess the whole trying to eat him multiple times thing is a pretty blatant mark against Fink in this relationship, but with that in mind, isn't it all the more impressive that their friendship landed this high?
Swimming's easy. I can teach him the way my mom taught me. Swim!
Aside from being a helpful co-parent, even reading Brightbill some bedtime stories to help ease his worried mind during a storm, Fink was ready to throw fangs with those geese who were bullying Brightbill. Everybody needs a friend who will straight up try to eat their bullies on sight. Later, they're even able to play in the presence of other geese, despite their species usually being predators and prey, which no doubt did good for helping the forest become a more peaceful place. Now, this is far from the most important relationship in the movie, but next up we have the bond between the otters. We've made it no secret how much we love these little guys as the first organic life forms we see in the movie. It's only natural that we'd remember them fondly. But the reason we had to mention them though was the fact that when, like the rest of the forest, they initially thought that Roz was a monster, their first instinct was to band together to protect the little one, showing that nature really can be beautiful. Next we have Pinktail and Roz. Without Pinktail, this movie's plot would basically just not have happened. After Roz sneakily tries to pawn Brightbill off on her, this exhausted mother of 6 or 7 gives him right back to Roz, along with the added encouragement that being his mother is now her top priority.
This gosling is yours.
This gives Roz the task she's been looking for the entire time, and she's even caring enough to help with some of the hard stuff, like encouraging Brightbill during flying lessons. And on a similar but slightly less friendly note, our final healthy relationship is that of Paddler and Roz. Paddler is one of the more unpleasant forest critters in the movie, and he's disliked by most of the ensemble cast for being more of an egotistical artist than anything else.
I think I need to find an island that's less weird.
You know, that description actually reminds me of someone. But while Paddler is definitely an egotist, he's not a bad guy by any means. Roz finds this out after she breaks her leg while training Brightbill, which leads into Paddler building her a new one out of wood, seemingly for no reason beyond the kindness of his heart. Later, he's even seen helping Brightbill in his flight training, making him one of only a couple other animals to do so, which shows that he's willing to look for the good in people. Tragically, much more often than a lot of people do in him. But now it's time to move on to the more questionable bonds in the series. These are the rocky relationships. And first up we have Roz and Rummage, two Rosm units found on the island. One is a robot who's grappling with the concept of feeling real emotions for the first time, and the other is a robot who does not feel such human emotions. You can imagine things are gonna get a little weird, but they aren't as bad as that bleak description could turn out. Instead, basically what happens is that Roz uses Rummage as a sounding board when she needs someone to talk to after her falling out with Brightbill. And upon the reveal that she has an adoptive son and is starting to feel feelings, Rummage is naturally horrified. Wait, what part of that was natural? But in any case, she gives her a replacement for her retrieval unit so she can go home for repairs. Which sounds pretty noble, right? Yeah, it does, but then you remember that Roz basically brought Rummage back from the dead just to do this. Like, if these two weren't robots, she'd be venting to a zombie. It's like that scene at the beginning of Deadpool and Wolverine, but but less gruesome. Bye bye Rummage, on to the next entry. It feels weird to place Pinktail and her kids this low, considering there really isn't much going on here beyond the norm. Pinktail is an exhausted mother of exhausting children.
It's a full-time thing.
There's nothing particularly rocky about the relationship with the exception of one scene. When Pinktail talks to Roz about parenthood, she brings up the fact that she has 7 kids, quickly correcting that number to 6 when one of them seemingly dies off screen. Later, when old number 7 reveals themselves to be okay, Pinktail expresses a very sarcastic,
Oh, yay.
I know being a mom is exhausting, much less a mom of 7, and I know the scene is played for laughs, but that's just not something I can ignore on a healthy to toxic list. She does love her kids and takes good care of them, but she still expressed genuine relief when she thought one of them literally died. Following, we have the relationship between Paddler and the forest creatures. While he gets along well with Roz and seemingly becomes friends with Pinktail and Fink by the end of the movie, Paddler just doesn't vibe well with the majority of the forest. They literally gawk at him like a roadside attraction while he's trying to cut down the biggest tree in the forest, something that clearly means a lot to him, and they're just constantly mocking him for it. While Paddler isn't fully innocent either, it's not hard to see why he isn't overly fond of the others. When the rest of the forest expresses that they've taken an interest in his hobby, Paddler rightly calls them out on using his passion because they need his help. Thankfully, after an apology and some praises too, he still helps them put out the fire before it's entirely too late, giving the forest some hope of healing in the future, and seemingly improving his relationship with the bunch. I mean, come on, you don't carve little wooden figurines of people you don't like, right? Another wider scale relationship, the bear and the forest creatures, is up next. Now, in the bear's defense, I guess the bond between an apex predator and all his potential prey can only be so healthy.
I know predators, and those are predators.
But as it turns out, this guy's actually pretty chill. Despite his ability to terrorize anyone he wants, he's the first one to agree with Fink's proposal of an interspecies truce, probably being moved by Roz saving him from the blizzard. He helps lead the charge to put out the forest fire caused by Vantra too, which demonstrates some pretty solid leadership skills. There's more of this bear than meets the eye, so we can safely say he's far from a toxic influence on his community, even if he can be a pretty scary one. And finally, rounding out the rocky relationships is the relationship between humans and Rosms. I'm calling it now. If we get a sequel, I'm betting this will be a core focus. But for now, all we know is that Rosms were literally built to serve humanity in the most streamlined way possible. You know, like pretty much every form of technology. While we don't see much of their dynamic, the ending of the movie seems to imply that humans don't really see Rosms as more than servants, given how that one lady near the end just straight up ignored Roz's friendly greeting. Considering how Rosms can canonically override their own programming and become sentient, I think someone really needs to warn these people to be nicer to their unpaid robot servants. But until then, it's time to discuss our last few bonds for the day in the toxic relationships category. I think there's a case to be made for us putting the relationship between Brightbill and the geese in the rocky relationships category rather than the toxic. In the end, they do all become a healthy community, with Brightbill finally finding his place among them after leading them out of a life or death situation. That's great, but these guys bullied an orphan child. They never apologized for it and only changed their minds about it when he did something for them. I don't know about anyone else, but as far as we're concerned, there are only 2 geese in this movie we can fully respect and trust. Now, we start the bottom 3 with one of the first relationships we see, the raccoons and Roz. Remember that brief mention of Roz accidentally killing Brightbill's entire family? Yeah, these guys are more or less responsible. When Roz is exhausted after a long day of being rejected by the local wildlife, the raccoons decide to make her day even worse by robbing her of several body parts, then chasing her down for more when she rightfully fights them back. Roz is only able to escape by reaching for a cliff via a very durable tree that proceeds to slingshot the raccoons away, which leads to the aforementioned multi-homicide. While the raccoons aren't doing it maliciously, they're still doing something pretty awful to Roz, and cause the death of an innocent bird family in the process. But the silver medal of toxicity goes to the relationship between Vantra and Roz. While Vantra isn't a typical villain, her goal is still directly counter to Roz's. Roz wants to stay in the forest with her animal friends, free to live as her new self-reprogrammed self.
They want me to come with them.
Tell them you're already home.
Vantra, on the other hand, is under someone else's authority and has orders to retrieve Roz for repairs and memory extraction. It's only natural that these two are gonna have some serious strife with each other, and really, it's all Vantra's cross to bear. She was willing to start a full-on neon forest fire to catch Roz and refused her last request to save at least one of her memories. Like, come on, Vantra, any last words is an iconic villain line. You just lost yourself some credit, but I guess at the end of the day, you couldn't at least argue that Vantra is just doing her job. But first, this video is brought to you by Wicked Binge channel memberships. You can gain access to our videos early before anyone else, plus get members-only emojis and loyalty badges by supporting the channel through a membership. And that's enough to make this DreamWorks feud still healthier than our gold medal of toxicity winner, the relationship between Fink and Fink's mother. This lady put her baby to sleep by hitting him with a rock. Yeah, that could just be the end of the section, honestly. Whether this was something that actually happened or not, we know that Fink's lack of a loving mother is what made him want companionship so badly. To the point where he snuggled up with Roz, a robot, as she fell asleep just to feel some semblance of comfort. You know you've made a great villainous character when they don't even have to appear once on screen for us to absolutely hate their guts.